the story of a boy with some very unusual friends.
Look at the rats.
Willard takes good care of them.
Yes. Look at the rats.
And they will do anything for Willard.
Tear them up! No, Willard! No, Willard! No, Willard! No!
Where your nightmares end, Willard begins. From Cinerama Releasing. Rated GP. All ages. Parental guidance. Willard is the one movie you should not see alone.
Foolish mortal, you have inadvertently tuned into the forbidden frequency. It's Zombie Astronaut's Frequency of Fear.
And that, zombie me lad, is how you can trick customs into giving you a cavity search to fill the void when you're lonely.
Yeah, thanks for the advice.
Oh, I feel like stomach punches.
Really? That's a bit odd, but why deny someone's request for violence to be visited upon them?
No, Captain Bonemarrow, I think he means he's sick.
Where are you when I need you, Tony Danza?
Mr. Von Martinez, might you feel a little queasy?
Candy corn.
What?
Look at me, Mr. Von Martinez. Look at me. If I'd known his sea legs would be this gimpy, I'd not have invited him aboard my ship. Mr. Von Martinez.
Tummy hatings.
Look at me, Mr. Von Martinez. Mr. Von Martinez, are you sick? Mr. Von Martinez, come on, look at your old pal, Captain Bonemarrow.
Man, is that disgusting.
Did you, by any chance, have fish and milk for breakfast?
Oh, beard pukings.
I also detect a hint of cilantro.
Look, Captain Bonemarrow, I'm going to take Dr. Von Martinez back to his cabin so Adolf can take care of him.
Good idea, Mr. Zombie. In the meantime, I'll have Salty Sam hose off my face.
Oh, the puking.
Salty Sam, front and center.
Captain Bonemarrow, sir!
Hose me face off, Sam. Someone got sick in me beard again.
Again?
Say ho-ho. Avast! What manner of vessel have ye laid your deadlights on?
A freighter off the starboard side, Captain.
Sam, the hosing will have to wait. We're taking that freighter.
Aye, Captain!
To your places now, men. Handsomely now.
Aye,
Captain. Skinny Bill.
Aye, Captain.
Steer us alongside that freighter.
Aye, Captain.
Salty Sam.
Aye, Captain.
Where's Musty Frank?
He's in the trunk in the hold where we always keep him.
Fetch Musty Frank.
Aye, Captain.
Cutthroat Carl.
Aye, Captain.
Ready the grappling hooks.
Aye, Captain.
What's going on?
We're boarding that vessel, Mr. Zombie.
Cool. I've never seen you do anything other than, well, shoplift, really.
Well, now you'll see the most fearsome pirate alive at work, Mr. Zombie. Carl, the grappling hooks.
Aye, Captain.
All right, men. Board that steel beastie. Where the devil is everybody?
This is kind of weird.
Maybe it's nap time, like in kindergarten.
I want to get on the big boat.
You have to climb over the ropes, all funky pirate-like.
Skinny Bill.
Aye, Captain.
Take 2 men and scour the deck, up the starboard side and down the port.
Aye, Captain. You, come with me.
Where's Musty Frank?
Right here.
I'll never get used to that smell. And I should know I presently have someone else's vomit in my beard.
Wait for me. Wait for me. I'm almost over.
Musty Frank, take 4 men and check the upper deck and up to the bridge.
Aye, Captain.
Zombie, Von Martinez, We'll check the hospital in the aft.
Sure thing.
I'm almost across. I'm nearly there.
Do we really have to wait for the hunchback?
No, it's all right. He'll be doing that for a while.
Nobody. Not a single sailor.
We still have to check the surgery and back.
I already did. There's nobody in there.
No one at all?
Not unless you count the skeletons.
Skeletons?
See? Chickadee, check it out.
These bones are fresh.
Are you sure?
Well, I could always check them. Come here.
Wow, that's disturbing. And I should know. I'm pretty disturbed.
Yes, Mr. Zombie. For the first time I can recall, you've proven to be more disgusting than me.
What? I'm a frickin' zombie. Good gravy, that rat is huge. Let go! Let go! This is my leg bone! Give me it! Give me it!
Stinking bilge rat!
Whoa, it's huge! With big glowing eyes! Like Tony Danza.
Tony Danza doesn't have glowing eyes. That is a big rat, though.
Too big, as a matter of fact. And it's covered in stinking toxic goop. And not the good stinking toxic goop either.
Captain, we couldn't find anyone on deck anywhere. But when we was looking, something grabbed Buccaneer Bart and dragged him somewhere below deck.
Which one was Buccaneer Bart?
Bart was the one with the eye patch.
Oh yes, that Bart.
Most of you have eye patches.
Not over both eyes. Poor fella. Never saw it coming.
What did you say dragged him below deck?
I didn't. Yarr.
Well, now's a good time to bring it up.
Oh, well, it was rats. Lots of big stinking sticky dirty rats. With great big glowing eyes.
Like Tony Danza?
What?
I do not like where this is headed.
What? You mean southeast?
Not where the boat's headed. You know, in an unpleasant coincidence, the theme for this podcast is rats. Now, I'm not a big fan of rats. The problem with rats is they'll eat anything, alive or dead, as in my case. And though not everyone actually focuses on that point, that is a possibility in our next tale. Despite the two hazards mentioned in the title, we can't forget the hordes of rats crawling all over our helpless victim. Listen now to the Edgar Allan Poe's Gothic Tales episode, The Pit and the Pendulum.
Good evening. This is Christopher Lee. And as the witching hour approaches, it's time for Edgar Allan Poe's Gothic Tales. Have you ever been caught between the devil and the deep blue sea? Could be so much worse. Think of the dungeons of the Spanish Inquisition, for example, where you might be caught between the pit and the pendulum. I was sick unto death with long agony. I lay upon my back unbound. I strove to imagine where and what I could be. I dared not employ my vision. It was not that I feared to look upon things horrible, but that I grew aghast, lest there should be nothing to see. At length, with a wild desperation, I quickly unclosed my eyes. My worst thoughts were confirmed. The blackness of eternal night encompassed me. The intensity of the darkness seemed to oppress and stifle me. The atmosphere was intolerably close. A fearful idea suddenly drove the blood in torrents upon my heart, and I started to my feet, trembling convulsively. I thrust my arms wildly around me in all directions. I felt nothing, yet dreaded to move a step, lest I should be impeded by the walls of a tomb. The agony of suspense grew at length intolerable, and I cautiously moved forward with my arms extended and my eyes straining from their sockets. I proceeded for many paces. Still all was blackness and vacancy. I breathed more freely. It seemed that mine was not at least the most hideous of fates. As I continued onward, there came thronging upon my recollection 1,000 vague rumors of the horrors of Toledo, of the dungeons of the Inquisition. There had been strange things narrated, fables I had always deemed them too ghastly to repeat, save in a whisper. Was I left to perish of starvation in this subterranean world of darkness, or what fate, perhaps even more fearful, awaited me? My outstretched hands at length encountered a wall, seemingly of stone masonry, smooth, slimy, and cold. Quitting the wall, I resolved to cross the area of the enclosure. I proceeded with extreme caution, for the floor, although solid, was treacherous with slime. I had advanced some 10 or 12 paces in this manner, when I stepped on the torn hem of my robe, and fell violently on my face. My chin rested upon the floor of the prison, but the upper portion of my head touched nothing. My forehead seemed bathed in a clammy vapor, and the smell of decayed fungus arose to my nostrils. I put forward my arm, and shuddered to find that I had fallen at the very brink of a circular pit. Groping about the masonry just below the margin, I dislodged a small fragment and let it fall into the abyss. I saw clearly the doom which had been prepared for me. Another step, and the world had seen me no more. I had read of these pits. The sudden extinction of life formed no part of their most horrible plan. I found by my side a loaf and a pitcher of water. I emptied the vessel at a draught. It must have been drugged, for scarcely had I drunk before a deep sleep fell upon me. When I unclosed my eyes, the objects around me were visible. By a sulphurous luster, the origin of which I could not determine, I was enabled to see the extent and aspect of the prison. What I had taken for masonry seemed to be huge metal plates. The entire surface of this metallic enclosure was daubed in hideous and repulsive devices, fiends in aspects of menace. The floor was of stone. In the center yawned the circular pit from whose jaws I had escaped. My personal condition had been greatly changed. I now lay upon my back on a low framework of wood, securely bound by a long strap. It passed in many convolutions about my limbs and body, leaving at liberty only my head and my left arm to such extent that I could supply myself with food from an earthen dish on the floor. I was consumed with an intolerable thirst. It appeared to be the design of my persecutors to stimulate, for the food in the dish was meat, pungently seasoned. I surveyed the ceiling of my prison, some 30 or 40 feet overhead, and constructed much as the walls. In one of its panels was the painted figure of Time. In lieu of a scythe, he held what I supposed to be the pictured image of a huge pendulum, such as we see on antique clocks. While I gazed up at it, I fancied that I saw it in motion. Its sweep was brief and slow. I watched it for some minutes, in fear, in wonder. A slight noise attracted my notice, and looking to the floor, I saw several enormous rats had issued from the well, allured by the scent of the meat. It might have been an hour before I again cast my eyes upward. What I then saw confounded me. The sweep of the pendulum had increased by nearly a yard, and it had perceptibly descended. I now observed with horror that its nether extremity was a crescent of glittering steel, about a foot in length, the under edge as keen as a razor. It was appended to a weighty rod of brass, and the whole hissed as it swung through the air. I could no longer doubt the doom prepared for me by the inquisitorial agents. What boots it to tell of the long hours of horror during which I counted the rushing vibrations of the steel? It might have been the days past had it swept so closely over me as to fan me with its acrid breath. The pendulum was at right angles to my length, the crescent designed to cross the region of the heart. Down, steadily down, it crept. To the right, to the left, down, relentlessly down. It vibrated within 3 inches of my bosom. Down, unceasingly, inevitably, down. 10 or 12 vibrations would bring the steel in actual contact with my robe, and with this observation there suddenly came over my spirit all the keen, collected calmness of despair. There flashed upon my mind an idea, feeble, scarcely sane, but still entire. For many hours the immediate vicinity had been swarming with rats, wild, bold, ravenous. They had devoured all but a small remnant of the contents of the dish, with the particles of the oily, spiced viand which remained. I rubbed my bandage wherever I could. Then I lay breathlessly still. Observing that I remained without motion, 1 or 2 of the boldest leaped upon the framework and smelt at the strap. This signaled a general rush. Forth from the well they hurried, and leaped in hundreds upon my person. They busied themselves with the anointed bandage. They writhed upon my throat. Their cold lips sought my own. Disgust swelled my bosom and chilled my heart, yet plainly I perceived the loosening of the bandage. With a more than human resolution, I lay still. At length the strap hung in ribbons from my body, the pendulum already pressed upon my bosom. Twice again it swung, and a sharp pain shot through every nerve, but the moment of escape had arrived. Cautious, sidelong, shrinking, I slid beyond the reach of the scimitar. I was free. Free. Hand in the grasp of the Inquisition. I'd scarcely stepped from my wooden bed of horror when the motion of the hellish machine ceased, and I beheld it drawn up by some invisible force through the ceiling. My every motion was undoubtedly watched. I observed that the figures upon the walls were now assuming a startling brilliancy. Demon eyes glared upon me in 1,000 directions, gleamed with the lurid luster of fire. There came to my nostrils the vapor of heated iron. I gasped for breath. I shrank from the glowing metal to the center of the cell. The idea of the coolness of the well came over my soul like balm. I rushed to its deadly brink. I threw my straining vision below. The glare from the enkindled roof illumined its inmost recesses. Oh, horror! Oh, any horror but this! With a shriek, I buried my face in my hands, weeping bitterly. When I looked up, shuddering, there had been a second change. The room had been square. Two of its angles were now acute, too obtuse. The difference increased. With a low rumbling, the apartment shifted its form into that of a lozenge. I neither hoped nor desired it to stop. Death, I said. Any death but that of the pit. Fool! Might I have not known that into the pit it was the object of the burning iron to urge me? At length, for my seared and writhing body, there was no longer an inch of foothold on the firm floor of the prison. The agony of my soul found vent in one final scream of despair. I tottered upon the brink. I averted my eyes. There was a discordant hum of human voices, a loud blast, as of many trumpets, a harsh grating as the fiery walls rushed back. An outstretched arm caught my own as I fell, fainting, into the abyss. It was that of General Lassalle. The French army had entered Toledo. The Inquisition was in the hands of its enemies.
All right, I'm watching you all close up through my telescope. I can see you there, straining and awaiting for my next terror tale. This is the big warning. If you ain't heard about 'em yet, watch out. The ghost mice is coming. Yes, they're a-coming. The ghost mice from outer space. Oh, yes, about 1,000 years ago, the red demon farmed through the fire ghosts on the flaming planet Thorm. In the far heavens was overrun with the venomous little beasties. They come up out of the bowels of the Thorm. Millions of 'em clawing and gnawing and scampering up out of the caverns and the craters. They started to eat. They ate everything inside, yes. They ate the scrumprats and the squilligans of the fire ghosts. And they ate up all the diffybrogs and quine flames. They roost amidst the tall moat on the banks of the Futland Roof. They even ate their way into the ashy glom, where the plague gnomes abide. Yes. Oh, and nothing stopped them. Nothing. And nothing could fill them up or satisfy their hunger, 'cause everything they ate turned into nothing. Oh, terrible. Then one day old Morblug, the high priest of the flame trolls, and his presidium of waving green canatoles held a meeting and decided to send the bitter plague of mice down to eat us mortals off the earth. Yes, they lured all the growing herds of ghost mice into big glittering space wagons and blasted them, spinning out into space, whooming down toward the earth. And they've been blasting them off at us for over 1,000 years. And this morning, the very first of them horrible glittery space wagons come a-whistling down, like a shed caught in the gusty fist of a cyclone, thrashed open on the face of the field where a farmer was a-plowing, and spewed its nasty cargo, all squealing and squeaking out o'er the land. It was delightful, yes, exciting. Cause the first thing they did was to eat the farmer. Yeah, they ate the farmer. Yeah, they ran at him and ate him up. Oh, yes. They ate him up vicious-like and left him a-standing there, toothed clean, a skeleton in rags. Then they ate his mules tied there into the plow, and they foraged on, eating up every little thing as they went, leaving nothing anywhere but quick piles of bones. Bones, yes. Look, an endless line of the wicked space wagons is a-coming in fast now. I can spot them through my terrascope. Listen, there's one a-landing out there. Hear it? There's another. Closer this time. And there's another. Out by the village, they're crashing in everywhere. Swooping down into the cities. Plowing into the towns and hamlets. Belching out great waves of the ghost grease everywhere. Nasty little things. Soft, squidgy, like little bags of mush with sharp saw teeth in their long snoots. Oh, yes, yes. You can hear them. They're everywhere about you. They're a-gnawing into your kitchens. Right now, they're a-coming out of your record players, scampering all over your living rooms. Yes, jump into your airplanes, start up your helicopters, hang on to the chandelier, and get into a submarine. Yes, yes. I thought I was safe out here. But here comes Mephisto McCrow, with two of them riding on his back. Get off of me, you nasty little things. Go away! Oh, no.
Okay, so mice and rats are a little different, I get that, but I thought this might be a fun thing to play. This is from Martha Wentworth's album Terror Tales by the Old Sea Hag. It was the track Mice from Outer Space.
You stay here if you like, Musty Frank. I'm headed back up.
Do what you like, coward. So what if two of us got eaten by the great big snot-covered rats with glowing eyes? So what if three of us got eaten by the great big snot-covered rats with glowing eyes? I'm tired of being put back in that trunk when you don't need me. I'm going to find something worth something down here, and sail with something to sew it to something for something and buy myself something nice. Hey, what's this in these big steel barrels? Maybe they're full of cash and prizes. It stinks, and it's thick and viscous. I wonder what it tastes like. Oh, this is terrible. Oh, grouse is like pudding made of butt sweat and Mountain Dew. Oh, sweet Reba McEntire, this is by far the worst thing I've ever eaten. Oh, by all that is holy, why am I still eating it if it tastes this nasty? I just can't stop myself. I'm like a skinny girl going into a bowl of cottage cheese. Oh, I feel dizzy. So dizzy. I haven't felt this dizzy since I went to that Cypress Hill concert in '92.
Frank.
Oh, who is that?
Frank, it is us.
Frank,
it is us.
Huh? Where?
No, not over there, over here. No, not over there, over here.
Up here?
Do we sound like we're above your head?
No, you sound like you're over dancing all over their hair.
You have tasted the nasty pudding-like crap in the big containers. Therefore, you have proven yourself worthy of becoming the Rodent King.
The Rodent King! I told me mother I'd amount to something someday. Does anyone have a cell phone? I want to rub this in my mum's face.
No time. We must rid this vessel of the humans.
Yes, we must kill Captain Bonemarrow and the rest of them.
Where in the devil is Musty Frank and the men he took with him?
We need to find him quickly and get back to your pirate ship and get the heck out of here.
Wait for me. I'm almost over.
Salty Sam!
Aye, aye, Captain.
Gather up the rest of me crew. We'll post 2 sentries at the bow, 2 at the stern, and the rest of us are going to search the hold for Musty Frank, Buccaneer Bart, and any other ridiculously named crew member missing presently.
And Von Martinez and I will go back to the ship, and we'll wait for you there.
Though your cowardice is duly noted, you'll be ascending to the bridge and keeping a lookout.
A lookout for what? There won't be anything out there as dangerous as...
Look out for the Tony National Danza Guard!
There won't be anything out there as dangerous as giant, vicious, glock-covered rats with glowing eyes.
Sir.
Yes, Sheldon Ninja Soldier, what have you to report?
We've identified the pirate ship next to the freighter. It belongs to Captain Bonemarrow.
Finally! I shall be able to close a chapter in the inexplicable and historically inaccurate feud between pirates and ninjas.
Musty Frank, Buccaneer Bart, where are you scary devils anyway? Curse you dogs!
Bonemarrow!
Musty Frank, is that you? You'll address me as captain, or I'll saute your spleen and eyeballs and eat them for lunch.
Why are his eyes glowing?
You may have been Musty Frank's captain, but you're not captain to the Rodent King!
What in the bloody heck are you talking about? What rodents?
Oh dear.
Jinx, you owe me a soda.
Ow! Oh, very sorry. Shouldn't have done that.
Looking out. I don't see anything. I mean, I see Adolf.
I see a ninja.
Don't be ridiculous. Why would you see a ninja?
I don't know. I'll ask him if you want.
Oh, great. Well, fellow astronauts, though our worries have moved from rats to ninjas, we're going to keep with the rat theme. In our next audio drama, the rats are not just creepy because they're rats. These rats are creepy because they're haunted. Listen now to the Fear on 4 episode based on Bram Stoker's story, The Judge's House.
Welcome once more, ladies and gentlemen. And this week, it's story number 13. This particular story was told to me by Bram Stoker, the man who created that other Man in Black, the gaunt, insatiable Dracula. I like to think that the immortal Count himself enjoys listening to Fear on 4, accompanied by his 3 shrouded daughters, the wolves howling outside, the rats scurrying in the blood-soaked corners of the room. In fact, rats feature very much in the story I'm about to tell. The story of The Judge's House. It's an old and rambling house, in the Jacobean style, with heavy gables and windows unusually small and set higher than customary in such houses. It is surrounded, entirely surrounded, with a high brick wall, massively built. Indeed, it looks like a fortification, and this impression is deepened by the presence on the roof of a small round tower of weathered stone, which houses an old alarm bell. The the house is empty. It has been empty for many, many years. All about it there hangs an air of desolation. It stands some distance from the little town of Benchurch, in the midst of a small tract of weedy parkland. But all these things, the absolute, the unutterable loneliness of the place, only makes it seem the more desirable to Malcolm Malcolmson this year of his final examinations. He needs solitude, and that is something he will certainly find in this house, of all houses.
Mr. Carnford? The same, sir. Carnford and Frogmore estate agents at your service. I'm the Carnford in the middle.
How do you do? My name is Malcolmson. Malcolm Malcolmson. You will have had my letter?
Mr. Malcolmson. Oh, to be sure. Oh, yes, indeed. You wanted to rent the old house along the Rivington Road. Yes.
I gather it's available.
Oh, certainly. The owners will be only too delighted, I'm sure. It's a lonely old place. Of course, however...
That's exactly why I wanted, Mr. Carnford. I think I told you I'm reading for the mathematical tripos.
Of course. Yes, indeed. You wanted peace and quiet. Most necessary. Yes. If it's solitude you want, you'll find it in the judge's house. Oh, yes.
The judge's house, you say?
That's what they all call the old house hereabouts. Used to belong to some old judge. Terrible man, terrible. Long time ago, of course. A couple of 100 years at the very least.
I dare say he'll hardly trouble me if it was as long ago as all that, Mr. Carnford, no matter how terrible he was. Why was he terrible, by the way?
Oh, strange kind of fellow. Always getting people hanged. Very harsh. Had a kind of obsession, you know. Very cruel. As a matter of fact, Mr. Malcolmson, I might as well tell you myself before the locals gossip it out of all perspective to you. There's a sort of... well, a kind of something. A kind of prejudice, you see.
What kind of prejudice?
Oh, nothing much. You know the sort of thing. It's been empty so long, you see, and it's so old and desolate. You know the kind of thing that grows up round places like that. To tell you the truth, that's why we're willing to let you have the place so cheaply, you see. If only to accustom the people round here to seeing it inhabited.
They won't see much sign of its being inhabited, Mr. Carnford. I'll be too busy at my books to show myself.
Oh, to be sure. To be sure. And I suppose that as a scholar you are hardly the kind to worry about these absurd prejudices.
My dear Mr. Carnford, for the next few weeks I shall be far too concerned with the mysteries of elliptical functions and harmonical progressions to worry about any other kind of mysteries. Now, if I agree to pay you, say, 3 months' rent in advance?
That would be excellent.
Then I could move in straight away, do you think? I'm anxious to start work as soon as I can.
You shall have the key this moment.
Oh, and could you perhaps recommend some local woman who could come in to keep the place clean for me and do some simple meals?
I have the very woman you want, Mr. Malcolmson. She was in here only yesterday asking if I could find any work for her. Let me see now. I have a note of her name somewhere.
Oh, and Mr. Carnford, I must get someone to bring my things up from the station.
Oh, certainly. Try Tovey and Sprott in Bridge Street. They're the best, I think.
Right.
Yes. Mrs. Dempster. That's it, Mrs. Dempster.
Mrs. Dempster?
Yes, sir?
Mrs. Dempster, I've decided to have most of my things in the dining room here.
Yes, sir.
It's big enough, you see, and I can work at the table here beside the fire. And my little folding bed will fit nicely into that corner over there.
Yes, sir. But it's not a very cheerful room for you, sir.
Oh, I dare say I shall manage, Mrs. Dempster. I'll be too busy to notice if it's cheerful or not.
Yes, sir. All them old portraits and things on the walls is pretty dull for a young man like yourself, sir. There ain't none of them what you'd say handsome, sir.
Better and better. I wouldn't want my mind distracted by a gallery of young nudes, for instance.
No, sir. I suppose not. You know what that is, sir, of course.
Some kind of bell rope, from the way it's hanging.
Yes, sir. That there alarm bell on the roof, sir. Runs right up, it does, through the ceiling. They do say Well, never mind, it's only gossip. I remember that old bell ringing once, sir. Caused a dreadful stir in Benchurch. Dreadful. Ringing away.
You mean of its own accord?
Oh, no, sir. There was folk living in the house in them days, sir. I reckon it were about 50 year ago, near enough. I was only a girl myself. Some young folk tried it on for a lark, I suppose.
Well, I'm hardly likely to want to try any larks, Mrs. Dempster.
You might need it for other things, sir.
What, for instance?
Well, some says one thing, some says another, sir. It ain't for me to tell tales. Still, all the same, no kin of mine would sleep here of a night, sir, bell or no bell. There ain't nobody lived in his house for 50 year. Not since those young folk went away. And there's no telling why they did go away, sir.
No, indeed, Mrs. Dempster. No telling. So perhaps you had better not tell me yourself, eh? Now, have I got everything, I wonder?
A screen, sir. I reckon you'll need a screen.
What for?
Put round your bed. There's one upstairs, I'll fetch it down. It's very draughty in this big room. You'll need a screen. Though, mind you, I wouldn't like a screen myself, with all kinds of things to put their heads round the sides and over the top to look at me.
Mrs. Dempster, you're not afraid of ghosts, are you?
Well, no, sir. At least maybe not what you'd call ghosts. There ain't really such things as ghosts, I always say. Ghosts is always something else than what folks think they are. Ghosts is creaky doors and rats and mice and beetles and such. Here, look at that old wainscot round the wall there. There's rats in plenty there, if you ask me. I dare say you'll hear 'em too, of a night.
They won't disturb me, Mrs. Dempster.
No, sir. But it's different in the night. And if I was to have a screen round my bed in a room like this, with the thought of that old judge and his hangings and them rats all scampering, well, I wouldn't, sir, and that's a fact.
Yes, I'm sure you wouldn't. Well, now, if you would be good enough to bring me a kettle and some tea things, I can get to work straight away. I keep myself going with tea in the night time, you know, Mrs. Dempster.
Yes, sir. But don't sit up too late, sir. Not good for your health.
I'll try, Mrs. Dempster. I promise you I'll try. Oh, and you'll come in the morning to get some breakfast for me, say, 8:30?
I will, sir. Well, I'll get your tea things in and leave you to it then.
Yes, thank you, Mrs. Dempster. Oh, just one more thing before you go.
Yeah?
I meant to ask Mr. Capt, this old judge that used to live here, what was his name?
Well, to tell you the truth, sir, I don't rightly know. I did hear it once. Began with a J, if I mind right. Came here from the West Country to settle down for a bit, they do say. Had to lie low or something. He was that unpopular with his hangings. A terrible, cruel man, they say.
The West Country? Oh, that wouldn't have been...
Wait now, sir. I remember. Yes. Jeffers, that was it. No. Jeffries. Yes. I'm sure of it. Judge Jeffries, that was the name, sir. Judge Jeffries.
So Malcolm Malcolmson, well pleased with the success of his plan to find solitude, settled down for his first night in the judge's house. With his books piled on the table, he put fresh wood on the fire, trimmed his oil lamp, and settled himself to a spell of hard work. He went on without a pause until about 11 o'clock, and then stopped to make himself a cup of tea. The rest was a great luxury to him, and he enjoyed it with a sense of voluptuous ease. The renewed fire leapt and sparkled, and threw strange shadows through the ancient gloomy room. He sipped his tea and revelled in the sense of his isolation. And then, only then, did he begin to notice the little rustling, whispering sound that was filling the air.
God. Rats. The place is full of rats. Old Mrs. D was right. Surely they can't have been at it all the time I was reading. I must have noticed them. They're busy enough now, at any rate. What was it the old soul said? Rats is ghosts, and ghosts is rats. Well, I reckon it's just their way of welcoming a stranger. They've been lonely for too long. That's what it is. Don't worry, my small friends. Don't worry. I've come to keep you company now. Don't worry.
He smiles to himself and picks up the green-shaded oil lamp from the table. He goes round the room, wondering that so beautiful an old house had been so long neglected. The carving of the oak on the panels of the wainscot is magnificent. The old portraits above are fine and mellow, although most of them are too heavily covered in dust for him to be able to make out much detail. Here and there he sees some crack or hole that is blocked for a moment by the face of a rat, its bright eyes glittering in the light. They seem most concentrated in numbers in the corner of the old room where the long, slender bell rope hangs down beside a great portrait, larger and more imposing than all the rest. He is looking for a chair to stand on to examine the bell rope more closely at the point where it enters the ceiling, the gathering place, as it seems, of the small, busy host of rats, when he suddenly becomes aware that, just as quickly as it had begun, the noise all round him has stopped. He stays poised in his movement, disturbed unaccountably by the sudden quiet, and in an instant, in spite of his self-possession, a tremor of uneasiness passes through him. There, on a great high-backed carved oak chair beside the fire, which in the interval has died a little, there, steadily regarding him with baleful, glowing eyes, is an enormous rat. He recovers himself immediately, and makes as if to drive it away. It does not stir, but shows its great white teeth in anger, and its cruel eyes shine in the lamplight with an added vindictiveness. He seizes the poker and runs at it to kill it, but with a flashing glance that is the very essence of hate, it jumps on the floor, runs across the room, and scampers up the rope of the alarm bell to disappear behind the great portrait. Malcolmson stands in the silence, the poker in his hand, half ashamed of his fear, watching the rope still gently swaying. He shrugs and goes back to his table, and in a little while is so immersed in his studies again that the whole incident is forgotten. He works in the lamplit silence until dawn, and then, at last, worn out, he goes to bed.
Morning, sir. Breakfast.
What? What's that? Oh, it's you, Mrs. Dempster. Good morning.
I brought your breakfast in, sir. It's nearly 9. I thought I wouldn't wait much longer.
9 o'clock? Good heavens, I'd no idea. Thank you, Mrs. Dempster. Will you put the tray down there?
Looks to me as if you was overdoing it a bit, sir. Real washed out you look. Was you working late?
Late enough, I suppose. About 5 o'clock, I think.
You wasn't worried by anything, I hope, sir? I mean, in the night?
Oh, I was all right. You had the truth of it when you said the place was full of rats, Mrs. Dempster. They had a regular circus in here last night.
Rats. Ugh. I don't hold much with rats, sir. Dirty things.
There was one wicked-looking old devil sat up in that old chair by the fire there, then went running off the bell rope. I didn't much like the look of him.
Better take care, sir. Maybe it wasn't only an old devil. Maybe it was the old devil.
Mrs. Dempster, I believe you're not as enlightened as I thought you were yesterday. I believe you think there might be things here after all, in spite of what you said.
Well, it's all very well for you young folk to laugh, sir. It's just I don't hold with nosing into things too much. There's things it's better not to laugh at, if you ask me. Anyway, if I was you, I'd get some rat poison. Though if it was the old devil, I dare say you wouldn't get rid of him with that.
He won't worry me, Mrs. Dempster. Not when I have a good set of problems in thermodynamics to keep my mind busy. Oh, by the way, there's something I want you to do for me today. You could fit it in during my walk this afternoon, perhaps.
Anything you want, sir. What is it?
Will you dust those old portraits? I want to have a good look at them. Especially that big one there, the one beside the bell rope. Will you do it?
Yes, sir. Just as you say. If you want it, sir. If you really want it.
Malcolmson rises and has his breakfast. Outside, the weather is damp and unpleasant, and so he passes the time in further study. In the afternoon, the skies clear a little, and he goes for a walk into Benchurch by way of taking exercise. He stays rather later than he'd intended, so it's after dark when he gets back to the house. Mrs. Dempster has gone, leaving a cold supper for him on a tray. He eats it hungrily, and once more settles himself down in the great dining room for a night of hard work. This time, the scampering of the little army of rats begins earlier, and they disturb him more than they'd done the previous night. They scamper up and down and under and over. They squeak and scratch and gnaw. Getting bolder by degrees, they come out of their holes from the chinks and cracks and crannies in the wainscoting, till their eyes shine like small red lamps in the firelight. He rises to his feet and seizes the reading lamp from the table. There is a hasty scurrying sound, and the rats go scampering away and disappear. And again, as suddenly as it has begun, he discovers that the endless gnawing and squealing ceases, and he's all alone, in utter silence, his heart beating faster than normal, and as he draws a deep breath to steady himself, a long, strange thrill of fear goes through him. For the first time since Mrs. Dempster has dusted it, he's able to see, quite clearly in the lamplight, the great portrait that hangs on the wall beside the bell rope. It is the portrait of a judge, the judge, in his full robes of scarlet and ermine. The face is strong and merciless, evil and vindictive, with a dark, sensual mouth and a hooked nose like that of a bird of prey. Yet what disturbs the young man most is that the judge in the portrait is seated in a high-backed chair of carved oak beside a great stone fireplace, and behind the judge, hanging down from the ceiling, its end lying coiled on the floor, is a rope, a hangman's rope. The room in the portrait is the room in which he stands. The rope in the portrait is the bell rope. He had thought it unusually supple when first he'd seen it, the end of it worn and smooth, as if from much movement in a running noose. He swings round towards the fireplace to look at the actual counterpart of the chair in the portrait, and he recoils in such fear that the green-shaded lamp nearly falls from his hand. In the armchair, the judge's armchair, sits the enormous rat he had seen there the night before. And its eyes, as they regard him, have a peculiar brilliance. They glow with an unutterable malignance. He has seen those eyes before. They are the eyes, the identical eyes, small, cunning, intolerably evil, in the portrait above his head. For an instant he stands frozen. Then he leaps forward, his hand upraised, but the creature again forestalls him. With a sudden, swift movement, it jumps from the chair and scuttles rapidly across the room. Then up the swaying bell rope into a jagged, dark hole in the corner of the canvas of the portrait.
It is nearly 2 a.m. I should be working at my books. For some reason, I'm unaccountably nervous, and I'm unable to settle. To calm my mind, I've taken up my pen to write to you. I know I owe you a letter in any case. Outside, the wind has risen, and seems to be growing always in strength. Suddenly strangely cold, in spite of the great fire I've built. A few moments ago I had to take a neat brandy, or I might have been unable to steady my hand to hold the pen at all. I think you know that I am not a particularly imaginative man. If anything, I can be blamed for always taking a materialistic view of things. Yet, as I sit here in this ancient room, I am oppressed with a sense of evil. You did not tell me when you recommended this old house as the very place I was looking for to find peace and quiet that there were any dark associations attached to it. When I heard strange rumors concerning it, I paid no attention to them. Even now, I try to regard them as irrational superstitions. Yet an hour ago, less than an hour ago, I found myself in the grip of mortal terror. Indeed, it is to calm my nerves from the experience that I write to you now. The house here is infested with rats. Normally I'm not afraid of rats. Indeed, at first I almost welcomed their scamperings as a little sound to keep me company in the night. But here, in this very room, I saw a rat that was bigger than any I've ever seen in my life before. And there was also a something all about it that I cannot express, but which seemed to me to be charged with evil. What impressed and terrified me most as I looked at it was that its eyes, red, dreadful eyes, were, and I must say it, however wild and strange it may seem, were human eyes. Recognizable human eyes. Above me here, as I sit at my table, is a portrait. And when I raise my own eyes to look at it, No! No! Oh my God! No! He sees, in the shrouded glow of the lamplight, 1,000,000 little eyes regarding him. From every crack and cranny, unwinkingly they gaze. He sees small, furry bodies gathered close in a circle all round him, on the high-backed chairs, on the frames of the pictures, clinging motionless along the very top of the bell rope itself. The bell rope is quickly laden with rats, yet his fear does not spring from their eyes. He does not only fear the rats, it is something else that he sees that freezes him to the spot. In the center of the great portrait above him, the portrait of the judge, is a huge, irregular patch of brown, naked canvas, as fresh as when it was stretched on the frame. The background is as before, but the figure, the central figure, has disappeared. The judge is no longer there. In the oaken chair, the chair on which had sat the monstrous red-eyed rat, sits now the judge himself. His robes of scarlet shine in the flicker of the firelight. On his head, above the evil eyes, a black cap. In his withered white hands is the supple end of the bell rope, the hangman's rope. And even as Malcolmson stares in a paralysis of fear, the monstrous, stooping figure rises, still smoothing the end of the rope in his fingers and forming it to a coil and then to a noose. And with his eyes aglow in a red flame of triumph, he advances towards the helpless figure of the student, his long, strong, scarlet arms stretched out to him.
My God!
When the alarm bell of the judge's house sounds out across the countryside, a startled, huddled crowd assembles, led by an anxious Mrs. Dempster. Lights and torches appear, hurrying over the fields and through the desolate parkland. The bell still clangs as the white-faced helpers force their way into the great, dark house and move, terror-stricken, into the dining room. As they crowd in the doorway, wide-eyed and silent, they see why the bell is sounding. Swaying slowly back and forth at the rope's end is the twisted body of the young student. On the face of the judge, in the portrait beside him, is a smile of dark, malignant triumph.
Grab your underoos and let's get back to the ship.
Not so fast, old friend.
Big Ninja Jake! What in the bloody hair club for men are you doing here? For a ninja, your timing is terrible. Girl, close the whole doors before those glow-in-the-dark rats get out.
Aye, aye, Captain Bonemarrow.
My timing is perfect. My timing is certified by the Shaolin Continuing Education School for Ninjas.
I've always thought I could really go places with my high school degree, but today I find myself living single in a dirty one-room apartment playing Dungeons & Dragons with my dog, Spotty, who has sarcoptic mange and is blind in one eye. I only own 2 t-shirts, and they're both for a Michael Bolton concert I never went to. The arm I don't use for using my computer mouse is atrophied, and I have a weird rash covering my groin. See? If only I had gone to college. But now I'm old and smelly like an old lady's underpants. Oh, and the only money I have is Monopoly money, and I owe that to Spotty for landing on Park Place. Shut up, Spotty.
Are you broke? Unemployed? Unpopular? Useless? Not even worth the time it would take to kill you?
Okay, I get the picture.
Then why don't you go to the Shaolin Continuing Education School for Ninjas? For 1/10 of the cost of more reputable continuing education facilities, you too could learn how to use smoke bombs to disappear from crowded rooms. Learn pressure points that can kill a man in 3 seconds. Learn how to fling throwing stars for maximum damage to a human body. All of these ninja abilities and more will be taught to you at the Shaolin Continuing Education School for Ninjas. With training like this, you're ready for a career as one of the following: retail manager, unarmed security guard, grocery store greeter, meter maid, delivery truck driver, VCR repairman, Call the Shaolin Continuing Education School for Ninjas now for more information.
I was going nowhere in life, but after getting a degree from Shaolin Continuing Education School for Ninjas, I'm working at a mall kiosk selling fake hair pieces to teenage girls.
Like whatever.
Thank you, Shaolin Continuing Education School for Ninjas.
So this guy's walking down the street with a sandwich in one hand and this guy's head in the other.
Oh, wait, we're back on. Oh, dear.
I didn't think that stupid commercial was ever going to end. As I was saying, my timing is perfect. I've got you exactly where I want you.
What, on a freighter overrun by radioactive flesh-eating rats, being controlled by my wacko ex-crew member, Musty Frank?
Wait, what? What in the Katie Couric is going on here?
Rats, man. Flesh-eating rats. Radioactive flesh-eating rats. Starving radioactive flesh-eating rats. Huge starving radioactive flesh-eating rats.
Couldn't you have just said the last sentence? The important one with all of the words in it?
Well, couldn't you have gone to a ninja school that prepared you for something a little better than VCR repair?
You bastard! I'll rip your lips off!
I don't have any lips, you idiot!
Stop it, you land-living morons!
Maybe they went out to see a movie. Or maybe they went to get some mozzarella sticks.
Oh, no. They found another way to get on deck. Shut the doors to the bridge. Shut the doors to the bridge.
Skinny Bill, look for something to barricade the doors.
Aye.
Salty Sam, you and Mr. Von Martinez check the floors below and make sure the doors and windows are secure.
Aye, Captain.
Aye, something.
Fellow astronauts, while we finish barricading ourselves in the bridge so we don't get eaten by these nasty rats, why don't you listen to our last bit of rat-related audio drama? This is a classic. If you hadn't heard it already, I'm not going to spoil it. Listen now to the suspense episode originally broadcast November 11th, 1956, and starring none other than Vincent Price. Here's 3 Skeleton Key.
Suspense. And the producer of radio's outstanding theater of thrills, the master of mystery and adventure, William N. Robeson.
You are about to experience one of the most terrifying half hours in your entire life. 3 Skeleton Key, starring Vincent Price. Oh, yes, I realize superlatives tend to lose their significance by overuse. How many times have you been promised that a story would be the funniest, or the most dramatic, or the most exciting, only to find that it failed to live up to its advertising? The story you are about to hear is an exception. It is unconditionally guaranteed to chill your blood, unless you happen to love rats. We begin now with Mr. Vincent Price in 3 Skeleton Key, a play well calculated to keep you in suspense.
Picture this place. A gray tapering cylinder welded by iron rods and concrete to the key itself. A bare black rock 150 feet long, maybe 40 wide. That's at low tide. At high tide, just the light rising 110 feet straight up out of the ocean. And all about it, the churning water, gray-green, scum-dappled, warm as soup. And swarming with gigantic bat-like devilfish, great violet schools of Portuguese man-o'-war, and, yes, sharks, the big ones, the 15-footers. And as if this wasn't enough, there was a hot, dank, rotten-smelling wind that came at us day and night off the jungle swamps of the mainland. A wind that smelled like death. Set in the base of the light was a watertight bronze door. And in you went and up, yes, up and round, past the tanks of oil and the coils of rope, cases of wicks, racks of lanterns, sacks of spuds and cartons and cans, and up, and up, and up, round and round. Over the light storeroom was the food storeroom, and over the food storeroom was the bunk room where the three of us slept. And over the bunk room was the living and cooking room. And over the living and cooking room was the light. She was a beauty, balanced like a ballerina on the glistening steel axle of her rotary mechanism. And at night you'd lie there on the stone deck of the gallery with her revolving smoothly and quietly over your head, easing her bright white eye 360 degrees around the horizon. You'd lie there watching to see that the feeders kept working, that everything ran right. And it wouldn't be bad. The other two fellows snoring in their sacks 2 levels down. You'd smoke your pipe to kill the stink of the wind. And it wouldn't be bad. About those other two, Louis and Auguste. What a pair. Louis, he was head man, was a big fellow from the Basque country, black beard, little hard black eyes, and a pair of arms that I tell you, those arms were as big around as my legs. Yeah, head man he was, and what word he let go was law. A silent fellow, and although I spent my first 2 weeks trying to strike up a real conversation, the most I could ever get out of him was...
I took up this profession because I don't like people. They talk too much. It's quiet work, light tending. Let's keep it that way. You understand? You're getting to be as bad as Auguste. I thought maybe...
That was Louis. And when he accused me of becoming like Auguste, I quieted down, because Auguste was the talkingest man I've ever met. The talkingest and the ugliest. He was hunchbacked, stood 4 feet high, had red hair and big blue eyes. It seems he'd been an actor in Paris.
Played in over 200 different productions, dear boy. That's a grand guignol. Oh, but it was monstrous. Horrible. The way we used to scare the audience. I was hated. Yes. They used to throw things and hiss and bare their teeth at me. Well, finally it got too bad. I couldn't stand it any longer, so I gave up the theater. My nerves, you understand. Yes, I gave it up completely. I really did. I couldn't stand it any longer.
It all started one morning at 2:30. I was on watch, lying on the cool stone deck, pulling on my pipe, staring out at the blackness, the phosphorescent combers, and the big yellow stars. When out of the corner of my eye, I noticed something show up for a second. Something the light had touched, far off. I waited for her to come around again, and when she did, there it was. A 3-master, a big one, about a half-mile off, and coming down out of the nor-northwest, coming straight for us. You must understand, our light was where it was for a very good reason. Dangerous submerged reefs surrounded us, and ships kept clear, but this one, this sailing vessel, was coming straight on. I went over to the gallery door and yelled, "Louis! Louis!
What?
Ship headed for the reef!
Coming right up.
I had the glasses out now. Couldn't read her name, but I could see her quite plainly. All sails set, the foam creaming away under her bow, her beautiful lines. A Dutch ship, I guessed her. But why didn't she turn? Every time it passed, our light hit her with the glare of day.
Ship? Where?
Nor-northwest. The light will touch her in a moment.
Can't they see?
Look at her. She just keeps coming on.
The square heads.
What is it? What is it?
Watch nor-northwest.
I know what it is.
What?
the Dutchman, the Flying Dutchman.
She's derelict. That's it. Derelict? Abandoned. The crew left her for some reason or other, but instead of sinking, she's gone on, running before every wind.
She'll not run long. Not with these reefs to break her up.
A beautiful ship. Now, why would men leave a beautiful ship like that?
We watched her the rest of those black hours, heeling and rocking, pushed and pulled by every stray wind, every freak current. Watched her until the dawn came, till the sea turned from black to a pearly gray. And on she came again, heading for us. We all had our glasses trained on her now.
Auguste, you can kill the light.
Right, Chief.
She doesn't look so good by daylight. Do you think she'll ground this time? I say, do you think she'll ground this time?
This is impossible. Absolutely impossible.
Why?
Here, take my glasses. They're stronger than yours.
All right. What is it? I had to focus, and then my breath froze in my throat. The decks were swarming with a dark brown carpet that looked like a gigantic fungus, but undulating. And on the masts and yards, the guys and all, were hundreds, no, thousands, no, I don't know, an inestimable number of tremendous rats.
See them?
Yes, I see them.
Now we know why she's a derelict.
Yes, now we know.
What are you two doing? Here, give me a look.
Yes, give him the glasses. Take a good look, Chatterbox.
Huh?
Give you something to talk about.
She's still heading for us. Look, if she's going to turn, she'd better turn soon.
Suppose she doesn't.
You mean suppose she piles up on the quay?
It's low tide.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
Well, where's all the conversation? Auguste?
No! No!
She's still coming on.
Go away!
Turn.
Go away!
Turn, will you? Turn, I say, I pray you. Turn. Cracked up.
Rats! Look! On the water, like a carpet.
Swimming.
Sure, they're swimming. Those are ship rats.
They're swimming for the rocks.
The door below. It's open.
Yes, come on.
Down he went, racing down the stone stairs, taking them 3 and 4 at a time. Scared. You can bet we were scared.
Auguste, you get the windows. Maybe they can climb. We don't know.
Right, Chief, but hurry. Hurry.
See them?
No. Oh, yes, I do, yes. Up at the other end of the rock.
Look at them.
Me!
They smell us. Here they come. Close the door.
I can't. It's stuck.
Oh, here, let me...
You made it.
Holy. That was close.
One got in. Look, there.
We'll get him.
Watch it. Kick him.
Oh, what a brute.
It's as big as a tomcat. Bigger. His eyes were wild and red, his teeth long and sharp and yellow. He went for us, starving, ravenous. And we fought that one rat all over the room. It was all, believe me, I do not exaggerate. It was like fighting a panther.
Got him.
We'd better get aloft.
Yeah.
We ran up the winding staircase. We passed the tiny windows of the various levels. And at every one was a thick, wriggling, screaming curtain of brown fur. I was ahead of Louis, and I dreaded each successive level. Suppose they had found a way in.
Look at them. Will you look at them?
It's a nightmare.
Will you look at them?
The air of the gallery was thick and fetid with the stink of them. The light was dim brown, filtered through the crawling mass that swarmed over the glass all about us. We could not see the sky. Nothing but them. Their red eyes, their claws, their wriggling, hairy snouts, and their teeth. The rats, they screamed and howled and threw themselves against the glass. They were starving, and we stood quietly, very, very quietly, in the center of the glass room, under our beautiful light. We waited.
What can we do? What can we do, Chief?
Take it easy, Auguste. Take it easy.
It won't do any good. It won't do any good to stand here and shake.
That's right.
Go away! Go away! Do you hear me? Go away this instant!
They won't go away. Not until...
Finish it, Chief. Not until what?
Not until they've been fed.
You can take just so much horror, and then you get used to it. And they were interesting to watch, you know. They couldn't understand the glass. They could see us and they could rush at us, but that thin, invisible barrier held them off, stopped them. From time to time, we caught a glimpse of the rocks below. More rats down there, swarming brown velvet in the bright tropical sunlight. And then the tide began to rise.
If only it had drowned some of them.
Shipwrats don't drown. You can't drown one of them.
Look, they're all climbing up the tower.
Yeah, this bunch around us is getting thicker.
Say, what's the time, huh?
6:15.
You've got first watch.
Yes,
Wake
that's
me at
right.
10.
I will.
Come along, Auguste.
It was getting dark. One side of the room was lit a soft, filtered red. Sunset through the rats. Oh, very pretty. I set the wicks, checked my fuel, and then lit the lamp. It caught them, lit them in their gigantic wriggling web of pale, hairless bellies, twitching red tails, bright eyes. And then I started the rotary motor. The light drove them mad. As she swung slowly and smoothly about, she blinded them in the fierce stabbing bar of light, moving continually about, ever turning, ever touching, ever moving around, and they twitching and shuddering, eyes flaming when they were struck by the light, the bright light moving, and behind on the dark side of the room, so close, I dared not turn my back, but you cannot help turning your back when you are in a room made of glass. On the dark side of the room, you could not see them, but only their eyes, thousands of points of blank red light, blinking and twinkling like the stars of hell. Louis relieved me at 10. But as you may imagine, I didn't get much sleep that night. And when I came up into the gallery early the next morning, there stood Auguste. He was bowing to the rats, waving his arms, and so help me, making a speech.
My dear audience, I am going to play once again that magnificent role which made me the toast of the Paris theater. Prelati, the evil genius of the medieval underworld. I am he who did guide the dark soul of the Marechal into the nether paths. Do not be frightened, little children. I will not hurt you much.
He kept turning. I stood staring at him, horror-struck, but he didn't notice me. The man had gone mad. He kept turning, telling his stories to all the rats, leaving not one out. Auguste!
Another one, a latecomer. Take a seat on the aisle, dear
Auguste, stop it! He didn't stop. He went on, bowing and scraping to the rats, his big blue eyes rolling and winking, his wild red hair waving about him. I grabbed him by the arm and slapped his face. He looked at me like a child, and then his face screwed up. looked as though we were about to cry. Go below, August. Go on.
Oh, very well, then. Later, my dear audience. Later. Matinee today.
Sure, he was crazy. But I guess we all were. A few hours later, he came back up and caught Louie and me teasing the rats. Yes. Sounds horrible? It was fun. We would get right up against the glass and make faces at them. It drove them crazy. They would scratch away, trying to get in our eyes. Louis was even cuter about it. He'd pull a piece of bread out of his pocket and press it against the glass. The rats would scramble into a solid ball, biting each other, clustering like grapes. From time to time, a whole knot of them would slip and fall 110 feet to the surf below.
Look at the sharks.
They're eating them.
Those sharks are our friends. Here, I'll get another bunch together. Here, my beauty. That's it. Pile up. Kill each other. There they go.
August joined in, too. Oh, very ingenious, August. He learned that if he spread-eagled himself against the glass, they'd bunch and bundle against his figure. Then he'd leap back.
Look! My portrait in rats!
It went on all day, and then I was lying in bed. It was about midnight. I was very tired, and I was just beginning to fall off to sleep when I became conscious of a new sound. I couldn't figure it at first. I got up, lit the lamp, and went to the window. Even as I looked at it, I saw one of the panes begin to sag in. They had eaten the wood away. Louis, come quick!
What is it?
They found a way in. I held the glass with my hand. Now they were all going crazy, and assured of the success of this maneuver, they were all nibbling away at the wood. Louis ran below and then returned with a large sheet of tin. We spread it against the window and hammered it into place. Even as we did so, I felt the heavy bodies thudding against the other side as the window gave way.
That ought to hold. If it doesn't, we're done for.
Rats can't eat tin.
No, they can't. What was that?
I don't know.
It came from below.
The storeroom window.
They're in. They're swarming up the stairs.
Drop the trap. Two of them got in.
Go after them.
We didn't have to go after them. They came at us. I leapt to one side and grabbed a marlin spike, swung and smashed one in midair. I whirled to see Louis with the other. It had ripped his hand open and the blood was pouring all over the place. He held his hand aloft and kicked at the snarling rat. I stepped and swung and got him.
My hand! You got my hand.
That's the both of them, Louis. I'll get you something to tie that up.
Blood, look at it, my blood. I'm bleeding.
Don't worry about it, Louis. Don't worry. Now, here, look. I'll wind this kerchief around it. It'll be okay.
Blood.
There.
Blood.
No, it's not bad. Just the flesh.
My blood.
Then I became conscious of a new sound. They were gnawing their way through the wooden trap door. I watched the planks, fascinated, and even as I did, it began to give way. A bristling, whiskery snout showed through. Louis, we've got to go up. The next level was the living quarters and kitchen. I slammed the flap there, too, but it, too, was wood.
Oh, my blood. What are we going to do?
I don't know. They'll be through this one in a moment.
The gallery. The trapdoor in the gallery is metal.
Good. Come on. We made it. We lay across the trap, exhausted, while below us the rats took over the entire tower. could hear them howling and fighting over our food supply, our water, our leather, and all about us the others screamed and glared in at us, swayed in a tangled mess, hypnotized by the ever-turning light. By morning, the air in the little room was horrible. To now, we'd been getting air from the tower below. Now that was sealed off, and so was all our food and water. We lay exhausted and panting, waiting, and the hours crawled on. I was almost dozing from fatigue when I saw a sight that brought me too fast.
Would you like to come in, my beauty? Will you? I hold the powers of life and death, and I can let you in, you know.
Auguste was standing by the glass, and in one hand he held a big wrench. He was tapping the glass gently, not quite hard enough to break it. I eased myself to my feet and slowly, very slowly, I tiptoed toward him.
All I have to do is tap just a little harder and...
I found a coil of wire in the toolkit, and I trussed him up, fastened him to a stanchion in the center of the room. Louis was of no help. He lay on his side looking at his bloody hand, weak and sick as a baby. So there I was, a lunatic and a coward for company, and all about watching our little drama, the rats. The day dragged by. The supply boat wasn't due for another 12 days. I don't know what they could have done if they had come. And we had only one way of summoning them. That was to shoot off distress rockets, but the rockets were 4 floors below. And even if they'd been right there in the gallery, I couldn't have opened a window to fire them. That night I tended the light, but its flame was devouring our oxygen. The following day we lay, thirst-tormented, starving, waiting. The following night I again tended the light, but the small supply of spare wicking we kept in the gallery had become exhausted, and quite suddenly, at about midnight, the light went out. There was nothing I could do. Wicks were stored 3 levels below. Nothing I could do, nothing. From time to time, I'd strike a match to see the clock. And when I did, it lit up the million red eyes about us, all about us, watching, waiting. Below it had grown quiet. They'd cleaned us out, and now they, too, were waiting. All waiting. And then the rats, quite suddenly, were silent. And then I heard it. And then I saw the sky and the stars. The rats were gone. I went to the glass. Out there on the water, a small freighter, a banana boat showing a few lights, came softly and innocently at us. The light was out. They didn't know. I wanted to open the windows to call out to them, to warn them somehow, but I was afraid. What if the rats were hiding from me, tricking me? So I waited. She grounded very softly on a reef not 200 yards from the quay. Grounded so gently that the man playing the cornet, was he a passenger, a crewman off watch, didn't even stop playing. They tried washing her back off. I could have told them to save their fuel. The tide was rising, would have floated her free. And I waited. Well, that's all. That's the story. The sun came up and there wasn't a rat on the whole key. Every last one of that terrible army had deserted us. Gone back to sea on their new ship. August? Insane asylum, he never recovered. Louis, they took him into Cayenne where he died of blood poisoning from his bite. Life on 3 Skeleton Key isn't bad these days. But sometimes when I see a strange vessel approaching, I get a little nervous. Sure. Somewhere on the seas, there's a little banana boat without a crew. That is, without a human crew.
Well, the exits are secure here.
And we secured all possible exits downstairs.
And I painted a sign on the door that says, "No rats allowed." They'll never come in here now.
Sure.
Good job, Bonemarrow. Now we're trapped in here.
You're right. Salty Sam, Skinny Bill, let Big Ninja Jake and his black pajama buddies out, will you?
Oh, no, that's okay.
Although he does have a point. How are we going to get off the ship before they figure out how to get in here?
Not really sure, but I figured we could stay in here and think about it for a while. Maybe a few days. Couple of weeks, tops.
What will we eat?
Well, I have all this fish and milk in me beard.
I'm salty. We're screwed.
Doesn't anyone have any corn nuts? Or bugles or something?
I'm good.
What do you mean you're good?
Well, you know.
You wouldn't dare eat me.
Oh, heck no, you're disgusting. I don't even know these idiots, and they've roughed me up. They deserve to be eaten.
Let's not be hasty.
Hey, I have an idea.
What's your idea, Dr. Von Martinez? Dr. Von Martinez, what is your idea? What are you doing?
Hello, lucky caller. Dr. Despicable here. How may I enrich your life even more than I already have by deciding to speak to you?
Hi there. It's Dr. Wilhelm Von something.
Dr. Von Martinez.
No, that doesn't sound right.
What do you want?
We're going to be eaten by rats.
Oh, and I won't be there to see it.
What a shame.
Give me the phone. Doc? Doc, it's Zombie.
How can you hang out with that dolt Von Martinez and not want to kill yourself?
Because I'm already dead.
Well, the script says it makes sense, so I suppose.
Look, we're trapped on a freighter with a horde of rats.
Flesh-eating rats.
Flesh-eating rats.
Radioactive flesh-eating rats.
Radioactive flesh-eating rats.
Starving radioactive flesh-eating rats.
Starving radioactive flesh-eating rats.
Huge starving radioactive flesh-eating rats.
Huge starving radioactive flesh-eating rats.
Couldn't you have just said that last sentence?
The one containing all the pertinent information?
Not now. Look, is there anything you can think of to help us?
Well, I do have a satellite that I could triangulate your location into and burn the rats with a high-powered laser cannon.
Oh, that sounds awesome.
One moment, please.
What just happened? What was the explosion at the aft of the freighter?
Doc, the freighter is sinking.
Oh well, get a pie in the oven. Bye now.
Oh, so much for mulling it over for a while.
If only we had a diversion.
Hey guys, I made it!
And there's our diversion. Let's go.
Back to me ship. Double time.
Not so fast, Captain Bonemarrow. I'm Zombie Astronaut. And that Von Martinez guy. And all these other guys. Why are you all dressed in black anyway? What are you, in craft work?
Ninjas.
Oh, makes sense. Well, I'm the Rodent King. My army of rats will feast on your flesh.
Then they'll feast on yours, you stupid smelly lobotomy.
They won't eat me. I am their king. I am ruler of the rats. I'm like Raja of the rabbits, Maharaja of the mice, Sultan of the squirrels, Baron of the beavers, potentate of the prairie dogs, Emperor of
The ship's going to blow up.
Well, screw this. I don't even get health insurance.
Let's go.
Somebody save me from the rats!
Bye, Angel. Nice knowing you.
You bastard!
Just run over the rats and cross the
It's
road.
all freaking day just to get over here!
Just do it.
All right, we're across the road. Is the hunchback coming or not? We have to cut the road.
Hurry up. The rats are following you across.
Close enough. Cut the road. Now let's get out of here.
That was close. Wow, thank goodness we're safe on your ship, eh, Captain Bonemarrow?
All right, boys, throw them overboard.
What? Ah! I'll get you, Bonemarrow.
Hi there, I don't think we've been introduced.
No more ninjas.
Nope, no more ninjas.
Ninjas are all gone.
Oh, I'm sorry, Captain Bonemarrow. I shouldn't have eaten all that stinking glowing sludge, and I shouldn't have listened to the rats. I should have been a more loyal shipmate.
I'm glad you've learned your lesson. All right, boys, stuff him back in the trunk.
You inflamed ass.
Mutiny of the Rodent King was written by W. Ralph Walters. Dr. Wilhelm von Martinez was Brent Hanks. Skitty Bill was David Subkayak. Cutthroat Carl was Scott Wentworth. Big Ninja Jake was Brent Hanks. Bonemarrow's pirate crew was K.C. Locke, Taylor Kent, and W. Ralph Walters. The Shaolin Continuing Education School student was Taylor Kent. Dr. Despicable appeared just to make matters worse. All other voices were by W. Ralph Walters. The theme song was written and performed by Papa Suede. All other music licensed by Big Fish Audio, Network Music, or Pro Samples. For more Frequency of Fear, visit frequencyoffear.com. For more Frequency Light, visit zombieastronaut.net and click the Frequency Light link.